Parshios VaEra, when the Rebbeinu Shalom came to Moshe Rabbeinu to tell him that he should tell Klal Yisrael that he's going to take him out of Mitzrayim, he said the following words: "L'kachti eschem li la'am, I'll take them for me a nation. V'yisachem le'elokim, I'll be an Elokim for them." When Moshe Rabbeinu turned around to tell Klal Yisrael, the pasuk tells L'sham Moshe mikotz ruach mivoda kasha. They couldn't. Moshe Rabbeinu said they're out of breath, under the duress of terribly difficult work. It sounds like from the pasuk that they didn't accept what Moshe Rabbeinu said, and yet back in Parshios Shmos, the pasuk seems to say the opposite. Moshe Rabbeinu came from his meeting with the Rebbeinu Shalom by the Sneh, and then he came with Aaron HaKohen to speak to the Ziknei Yisrael and then to the Klal Yisrael itself. The pasuk says, "Va'imoina am v'yishmo ki poken Hashem es b'nei Yisrael v'chiros onim v'yiktu v'yishtachavu." They heard it. They believed it. They were looking forward to it. They bowed down in thanks, in gratitude. What happened? Initially, they believed everything Moshe Rabbeinu said, and now they seem to not hear it at all. Says the Ramban, of course they believed it. Nothing changed from before, but the work was so much more difficult now because they didn't have any straw, because they were just totally broken from the experience, that of course in their hearts they believed it, but they couldn't even hear it anymore. As the Ramban says, even if a person's promised something wonderful tomorrow, but if today's so difficult, he can't focus on it. However, the Medrash says a completely different thing. The Medrash tells a different story. And this pasuk, that they didn't hear Moshe Rabbeinu, because of ruach and avodah kasha, the Medrash says that they were unable to separate themselves from avodah zarah. In other words, they didn't want to go. Not that they couldn't hear it, they didn't want to go. And that's why they didn't hear Moshe Rabbeinu. As the Netziv explains, if you look at the psukim over there, before and now, you see a very important distinction. Over there, it was Poket Hashem. It was Hashem. It was a complete chesed. It was Rachmonis and Klal Yisrael. But over here, it was more than just Rachmonis. Vayisei lachem le'elokim. I'm going to be from Elokim. Says the Netziv that the Yitzias Mitzraim was conditional upon the fact that Klal Yisrael would accept the hashgacha sabore. They would accept the divine providence in their lives, and they would have to react accordingly. In other words, it wasn't a free ticket out. It wasn't just they were going to have chayros. There was a deal. They were going to go to Har Sinai. They were going to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. It wasn't just let my people go. The pasuk says, "Sholach ami ve'avduni." Tell Paro, send my nation out, and they'll serve me. There was a condition to the Yitzia. There was a condition to the Exodus. And that Klal Yisrael was not interested in. What does it mean they weren't interested? We see by Makkos Choshech that 80% of the Yidden, 4/5 of the Jews, didn't go out. There were 15 million Jews and around 3 million went out. Why didn't they go out? So Chazal say, Rashi brings Chazal in Parshios Bo, because they didn't want to leave. And according to Netziv, we understand why. They didn't want to leave because they preferred to be in the Shibud Mitzrayim, in the difficult, backbreaking labor, which was destroying them, than to go ahead and give themselves over to Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shalom should live with the should be b'hashgacha, that they should have to accommodate the Rebbeinu Shalom. They should have to go ahead and listen to him and react to everything that they did. They were going to be rewarded or punished for. To do that for a day, for a week, for a month, to do that for the rest of their lives and the rest of their children's lives, that everything was going to be weighed and measured, the Rebbeinu was going to treat them accordingly, that they didn't want. That's what the Netziv is saying. For that reason, they didn't want to leave Mitzrayim. 80% didn't want to leave because they didn't want to accept this. Or in the words of the famous patriot Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough just to have physical freedom from the English, but he wanted liberty, do what he wants. That's the concept of freedom. But we have a question to ask. If this is what the Gula is all about, that the Gula is conditional, it's contingent on Yidden reacting to the Hashgacha, and now they're bound to that Hashgacha, they're meshubad, so then it doesn't seem to be a complete Gula. It doesn't seem to be a complete Cheres. Cheres means freedom. I'm free. The Baruch Hashem takes me out of the Yitzias Mitzraim, And now I can do what I want. I have complete freedom. That's what emancipation is. Be free. This isn't freedom, or it doesn't seem to be. Perhaps we need to understand better what is real freedom. And I think that can be illustrated from the following story. There was a Yid on a plane many years ago, and he was sitting next to an Israeli diplomat. And the Israeli diplomat was not frum. He didn't keep kosher. And he was able to order on that flight a treif meal. And he said to the frum Yid, he said, "What are you going to get?" He said, "Nothing." "You're not going to eat on the flight?" "No, I'm not going to eat on the flight." "Why?" "You know why, because I keep kosher." "I know, but don't you get tired of that constraint? Isn't that difficult for you to be in shackles? You can't do what you want? Where's the freedom of being a frum Yid? Doesn't make any sense." The frum Yid sat there and he listened. He said, "I listen to Hashem. I keep the halacha." A little while later, the meal was served, and this Israeli diplomat, again, who was not frum, he's digging into his treif, whatever it was, and he looks at the frum Yid and he says, "Don't you want to even just a piece, a bite?" He said, "No, I keep kosher. I don't want anything." He said, "But don't you want to be free? You want to live your life in shackles?" So the frum Yid said to him, he said, "I'm more free than you are." "What? You're more free than me?" "Yes. Because you can't say no. I can say no. I'm free to say no. You aren't." Now, how do we understand the story? On a simple level, we'll understand that if I could say yes or I could say no, that's real freedom. That's true. But I think there's a deeper understanding. The deeper level is that my freedom is not defined by what goes on in this world. Because what goes on in this world, to be free in this world, means to do whatever I want. The more money I have, the more opportunity I have, the more talent I have, whatever the more I have, the more freedom I have. Freedom of movement, freedom of investment, freedom of pleasure. It's all about fulfilling my desire. That's how the world defines freedom. A Yid doesn't define it that way. How does he define freedom? In a sense, being meshubah to Ribono Shel Olam. That's what mitzvahs are all about. That's what responding to hashgacha is all about. So why is that more free? So I think perhaps you could understand it with the following mashal. People who ski know that there's two ways to get to the top of the mountain. There is a way to go on the chairlift. There's a way to go with the tow rope. What's a tow rope? A person must hold on to the rope very tightly and be dragged up the hill. But he's up at the top. If he holds on tightly, he'll get to the top, he'll get to a different place. So too from a Yid, when he holds on to the Ribono Shel Olam tightly, by doing his mitzvahs, by submitting himself, by responding to hashgacha. So in this world, he can't do whatever he wants, but that's the world, that's the freedom of this world. The Yid is interested in the real freedom, because who's the most free? The Ribono Shel Olam. There's no constraints with the Ribono Shel Olam. He lives in a totally free world. He's the definition of freedom. And therefore, when a Yid will attach himself to Ribono Shel Olam wholeheartedly, to do his mitzvahs, to listen to hashgacha, then he's drawn into the Ribono Shel Olam's world, into the world of real freedom. And that's why the Yitzias Mitzraim was not a partial geula. It was not a partial cheres. It's a complete cheres. But the cheres is a cheres olam. The freedom, the emancipation, the experience of Yitzias Mitzraim is not just to get us out of Sivlos Mitzrayim. It's to give us true freedom. And that's why it's contingent on Kabbalas Torah. And that's why it's contingent on Hashgacha. And that's what Yidden didn't want. They were consumed with the freedom of this world. They couldn't totally understand, realize, be masig, the true freedom. Except 20% did. They realized that that's the true freedom. And that's why we have to understand Yitzias Mitzrayim is the opportunity for us to live freedom in its fullest sense.